Okay, terrific. All righty. Good morning, everybody. And I'm so proud to be joined by our great new governor, Governor Hochul, my friend, partner, and colleague on everything we do for New York in the Senate, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, our great new congressman who represents this area, Jamal Bowman, Mamaroneck Mayor, that's Mamaroneck Mayor, that's a tongue twister. Mamaroneck Mayor, Tom Murphy, all M's. And when you hear him speak, you will hear. He talks like me. He's from New York. We also have our great county executive, George Latimer, as well as our New York State Senator, Shelley Mayer, our Assembly member, Steve Otis, former mayor, now Assembly member, Jerry Barbarino, our village manager, Catherine Parker, where'd she go? Right there, she represents this area in the state legislature, in the county legislature. Kelly Wenstrup, he's a trustee liaison of the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee, and Dan Natchez, Village of Mamaroneck trustee. First and foremost, we want to commend the work of the first responders and community partners here in Mamaroneck, who once again have stepped up this week during the devastation and saved countless lives. Let's have a round of applause for our first responders. During Ida, they completed over 100 water rescues. They continue to work tirelessly to assist over 1,000 people just here have been displaced. It says on my notes, let's give them a round of applause. I did that already, but let's do it again. Let's give them a second round of applause. So we're here today following this devastating storm because the area where the Mamaroneck and Sheldrake rivers meet, right by Columbus Park, where I've been many times, has been a flooding hotspot for decades. It's costing the area millions in damage, costing the area millions in devastation. There have been far too many times that Mamaroneck has been beaten and battered by storms, only to have the federal bureaucracy leave them hanging out to dry. This must stop. We need the federal government to once and for all rectify this issue so we don't have to go through what we went through the last 2 days again and again and again. I remember the devastation when I visited the village in April of 2007. None of my colleagues were here at that time, so they weren't here, but they would have been. And it cost over $50 million in damage. I saw the flooding. I remember going to the stores and the restaurants and hearing the breaking hearts of those small business owners whose businesses were ruined. So after that visit, I sounded the alarm in Congress and secured the first step to fix this issue. I got a $4.7 million study through the Army Corps of Engineers. The bottom line is the way the Army Corps works, they first do a study and figure out what the best thing to do is. That study is done, so we are ready to go. But there's a sad tale, which I'll tell in a minute. Anyway, while the study was going on, we had severe flooding continuing to plague the village. We had Hurricanes Irene, Hurricane Lee, Hurricane Sandy, and now Ida. So this isn't the first or second time. Though the study was completed and we successfully fought for construction to be authorized, and it was in the 2018 Water Infrastructure Act. I put it in there with Senator Gillibrand's help. The Trump administration, in another one of their vicious moves, because it was anti-New York, decided not to move forward with construction of this long overdue process because of the arbitrary and bureaucratic excuses used by the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. They disregarded the loss of human life here. They disregarded the destruction to the village, the cost to the village and the taxpayers, the cost to the small business people. They just said no. They let many other projects in other areas go forward in states that were friendlier to them. So that is why I am here today demanding that OMB and the Army Corps of Engineers move heaven and earth and finally begin the Mamaroneck and Sheldrake River Flood Risk Management Project. Once and for all.
Well said.
It's going to save lives, and it can make sure that what happened this week will never happen again. The project builds over a mile of breakwater walls in the Mamaroneck and Sheldrake rivers and drains them and deepens them. So when there's a lot of rain, and we're going to get a lot more rain with climate change and global warming, the rivers will not overflow. That's what will happen. The rain came down last night, 2 nights ago, at a pace of 3 inches per hour in Mamaroneck during Ida. And the area most prone to flooding is the most economically underserved. During the storm, half of Mamaroneck lost power during the flooding. Residents reported up to 14 feet of water flooding homes, businesses, and roads. The Army Corps feasibility study estimates this project will reduce damages, and the study is old. Global warming has increased. It's reduced damages by $3.4 million annually and provide an 87% risk reduction in main floor flood damages. Projects like these, to protect the lives and homes of Americans, is why the Senate just passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and it has in it $2.5 billion for inland flood risk management projects. So that means once the Army Corps gives the green light, there's money to go ahead, get the shovels in the ground, and start on the project once and for all. And I'm confident that this administration won't do what the last administration did and block it. Confident of that. The Corps is authorized to start as many new projects as needed to funding, and that's why we're here. I help the Army Corps all the time. They're great. But Army Corps, make this number one. Number one. You have plenty of money, put it at the top of the list. The River Flood Management Project would bring over, as I said, 4,000 feet, close to a mile of new and desperately needed flood walls. It will widen and deepen both the Sheldrake and Mamaroneck rivers and remove or replace 6 bridges along the rivers, bridges that need immediate repairs. So it's a comprehensive project. The study they did is a damn good study. But studies that sit on the shelf do no good until the shovels get in the ground and the project gets done. So, if you ask the folks of Mamaroneck, the typical mom or dad, the business owner, they might not know why this keeps happening or why the federal government can't help. But I'll tell you, this week they did know what they did know is that they had to leave their homes in the dead of night, some still in PJs, and shelter at the local high school. That's not acceptable. We're here to say enough is enough. We need OMB and the Army Corps to cut through the red tape. I'm going to use my clout as majority leader. Senator Gillibrand will use her clout as the great senator from New York. Our dynamic, ever active new Congressman Bowman will use his clout, and we will get this done at the federal level. Now we need a little state help, and I'm glad Governor Hochul is here, because with our new governor, she is always willing to help. So let me thank her for coming and recognize her.
Thank you, Senator Schumer, for gathering us here today to make this significant announcement and to continue to put the pressure on. And I understand the sense of urgency that comes with this. Also, a great friend of mine for many, many years, since I first ran for local office, federal office, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who's always there and always shows up as well. And my partners from Congress to the Assembly to the Senate, local government. I spent 14 years as a local government official, so I'm well versed in asking the Army Corps of Engineers for help and pushing people higher up the food chain. And now that I'm in a position in state government, I can stop complaining about the state government, and I can commit here today that the state will provide the resources for this project to get the engineering and design phase underway. So that's happening right now.
Well done.
High
five that one.
All right, thank you. So that was easy. What is not easy is the aftermath of a horrific storm. And there's a lot of pain out there. I just left other streets over in Yonkers and around Queens and Long Island yesterday. I'm heading to Staten Island after this. So many people's lives were absolutely turned upside down. And to the families who had loved ones with them when they went to bed, or said goodbye when they went off to work or went to the grocery store, and those individuals who never returned, there's a lot of pain in our state right now. And our hearts go out to all of them. And we stand here committed to do whatever we can to help their families, help their neighborhoods, and as the senator said, to build the resiliency wherever we can to fight back Mother Nature. Mother Nature sounds like nice, and Mother Nature is like nice and nurturing and caring. Well, Mother Nature had a really bad night the other night. And because she was so angry, we are still in the throes of a cleanup where lives have been devastated, property demolished. And I want to thank, and my heart goes out to the first responders here representing those all over the state of New York. They teamed up with our state police to literally save people from the raging waters that had turned their streets into rivers, and it was a horrific situation. So I'm just here today to say thank you to everyone. Let them know that I'm no stranger to cleanup. Been cleaning up a long time. Projects, endeavors, and whether it's 7 feet of snow in Buffalo where people were stranded on highways for 36 hours, right after I was elected 2 weeks later. So this is new to me, not new to me. And also what we did up on Lake Ontario. And I just announced a resiliency project because we had a 100-year flooding event on Lake Ontario, and it happened again 2 years later. So when people talk about these 500-year events, 1,000-year events, none of us are buying it anymore. Mother Nature has changed because of what man has done. Man-made and man-induced climate change, the extensive greenhouse gases that have destroyed our environment have left us vulnerable. And we all stand together, local, state, and federal officials, to build the resiliency when we can, but also to address the specter of climate change with a greater sense of urgency, because the future of climate change is right now. It's happening, we feel it, and we're experiencing the aftermath this week. So I just want to thank everyone involved, and thank you, Senator, for inviting me.
Pleasure to have you here. Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. I want to thank our governor for really being here when we need you, to be at the forefront of the state's response, to work together with our local government to get things done for the many, many thousands of families who have been harmed, who have lost loved ones, who have lost their homes and their business. So thank you, Governor, for standing ready and strong to help the state in this time of need. And to Senator Schumer, who I've witnessed at every disaster since I've been in the Senate with him. And I remember the days after Superstorm Sandy and the devastation that wrought. I remember being here in Westchester with the number of lines that were down, the number of trees that destroyed homes, the number of people who were killed. We have been hit by these severe weather storms constantly over the last decade, constantly. And Senator Schumer's quite right that the federal government has a real responsibility. We have the responsibility of making sure the Army Corps of Engineers shows up, to make sure they do the work, to make sure that we build resiliency for the next time. Senator Schumer and I have been working in the Build Back Better plan for President Biden to put money in that bill for resiliency, so that we can actually protect homes, families, individuals from these superstorms that keep crushing our state. I'm sure you know the stories of what's happened. Infants drowning in their homes, families dying because the water's rushing in and they can't get out. Now, Westchester has some really good stories because we have first responders who were able to save people by boat, to be able to show up, to evacuate them. So we are grateful for each one of you, our first responders, our firefighters, the people who are on the front lines to literally save lives every day. Our heart goes out to you, and our gratitude goes to you and your families for all the sacrifice you make. I also want to be thankful to our local government representatives that are here, our county executive, our assembly members, our Congress member, and our local reps. They're in the community every day. So they're the ones who are answering the questions, getting the resources, making sure people have food and clothing and the things that may have been washed away. That is what you do. And so I just want to thank all of our local representatives. And last, we have to recognize this is not the end. This is just the next big storm. And this country is being devastated from flooding, from tornadoes, from wildfires. This is the impact of global climate change on our new normal. And it is devastating. It is heartbreaking. It is deadly. And so you have a team of elected leaders here with Senator Schumer as our majority leader that are going to do everything we can in this moment in time to not only help those recover with the resources that FEMA will get them and other resources that our governor will get them and the resources that our state electeds and local electeds will get them, but we have to work harder to make sure this doesn't keep happening. And that is an entire whole of government response. And so thank you, Senator Schumer, for bringing us together. And thank you for everyone here who is fighting so hard to protect our families and to prevent the next one.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. And now Congressman Bowman.
Thank you so much, Senator Schumer. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Governor Hochul, for being here as well. Mayor Murphy, I can't imagine what you've been going through over the last 48 hours. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for being here as well. We have to recognize the first responders. I had the pleasure of speaking with them for a few minutes before I came to the podium, and they were literally out there during the storm, saving lives, saving people from drowning. So I just want to recognize them and give them another round of applause, please. I told Chief Tom I was going to call him up and let him say a few words, but I don't want to put him on the spot. So he'll stay over there, and I'll support him from the podium. We cannot put a cost on human life. And we lost at least 14, Governor, human lives during this storm. And we could have lost so many more if it weren't for our first responders. And people lost their homes, people lost their basements, they lost their vehicles. The majority of Americans cannot survive a $400 emergency. And now there's so many costs accumulating because of this storm that took place. And this is a week and a half after a previous storm. And the governor mentioned in our last press conference that this can happen again next week. We are living in the middle of a climate catastrophe. We are living it, and we are seeing the results of it across this country. And that is why part of my job is to strongly encourage my colleagues in Congress to go as big as possible as we talk about an infrastructure reconciliation plan. We not only have to go as big as possible in terms of the top line number, we have to make sure that the goal is to end our dependency on fossil fuels. Because right now, based on where the climate is, this can happen again. And if the earth continues to warm, it is going to be more catastrophic and is going to be more consistent. And we currently do not have the infrastructure in place to deal with that. So we will continue to fight at the federal level for as many resources as possible. It doesn't matter what the cost is, because if we can save one baby's life, that matters, and we need to invest in that. Invest in our babies, invest in our children, invest in our families, invest in our seniors. And it's time for us to rebuild our infrastructure and rebuild our economy and rebuild our country. And there's no price tag for that, because we need a habitable planet for our children and grandchildren coming behind us. So it's my honor to be here with my fellow elected officials, our first responders, because we are going to work together to take a whole government approach to do whatever is necessary to get what needs to get done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well said.
Now our great mayor of Mamaroneck, Mayor Murphy. Mayor Mamaroneck Murphy.
Thank you, Senator Schumer.
They used to think I was Italian, Schumer.
First of all, I want to thank our elected officials for being here from every level of government. And from the bottom of my heart, for the people of this village, we really appreciate this. We need this. And I also want to give another shout out to our first responders. And what a lot of people don't know, and people watching at home don't know, is that our first responders, our fire department, is an all volunteer fire department.
Yes.
These folks are not paid. You know, they respond to these emergencies and rescue people when their houses are filling up with water. They leave their families to protect the rest of us. So, you know, that kind of devotion and that kind of sense of duty is something that's, you know, special in this country. And we owe it to them to not put them in harm's way constantly by having this kind of flooding. You know, we so appreciate what you do. And, you know, I know a lot of you guys a long time. And, you know, I know what it takes, and I know your families, and I know what you have to do to come out. And you know, if I don't say it enough, and I might not say it after this, but I really do appreciate it. You know, we talked. There's been talk about the financial costs of this, and you know, thank God we didn't lose any lives, and we didn't lose any lives because of our emergency responders. But there's an intangible too. There is the foreboding of every citizen whose house floods every time there's a rainstorm. People get nervous. People don't have the comfort of being safe in their own home. And they spent a lot of money on these homes, and they take care of them, and it's a beautiful community. But when you live with that stress constantly, it wears you down. You know, I get phone calls from people when there's big thunderstorms coming. Do you think the river's going to flood? And I understand it, and I appreciate it, but they shouldn't have to deal with that.
Right.
And the Army Corps plan that Senator Schumer has worked so hard to have right at our fingertips is there to help them. And we really have to get this across, because these people don't deserve to live like that. You know, this isn't just a few years, this is generations of people.
Yep.
And, you know, they pay taxes, they work hard, they're good, honest people, and they deserve a chance to enjoy their homes and their families just like everybody else in this country. And, you know, New York supports everybody. You know, if you go down to New Orleans right now and look at who's helping out, you'll see dozens and scores of New Yorkers. And we should be that way. That's the way Americans should be. But, you know, sometimes it's got to come back too. And we need it to come back, and we need the people of this community to finally get the relief they deserve. And I couldn't be more grateful for the help you guys just by coming here today and making this, you know, an issue that hopefully, you know, we all can keep pushing for. And as residents, you should keep on my case, you should keep on the trustees' case, the county people, the state people, and the federal people. Don't be afraid to keep pushing this, because that's how things happen. That's just the way it is, right?
You bet, Murphy.
All right, so thank you all for coming. I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Murphy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have our great county executive, who's done a great job throughout the county, George Latimer.
Thank you very much, Senator Chuck Schumer, to Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Governor Kathy Hochul, friends all. And the fact that they're here today, all three of them in this village, tells you something about how important it is. They have statewide responsibilities, national responsibilities, and they're right here in the friendly village. Chuck talked about what happened 14 years ago, April of 2007, and I remember it very well. Right down the street from here, one block over on Prospect, the senator got off a bus, and I was waiting. I was an assemblyman at the time, and Steve was chief aide to Susie Oppenheimer at the time, and Chuck Schumer came off that bus. I was having a little trouble with the governor of that day at the time, and he got off the bus and he put his arm around me. I'll never forget that, and he told me and gave me a word of encouragement, and I've always appreciated that. And not only did Chuck Schumer put an arm around me and a word of encouragement that day, he put an arm around the village of Mamaroneck that day, because we went to Spruce, we went to Anita Lane, we went to First Street, we went to Howard, we went to North James Street, and when you know the geography, then you know this isn't just a group of politicians talking. This is the real world. For 30 years, I've been involved in this village. My father worked in this village at Beach Point Club. As a young boy, he'd bring me up here to hang out with him at the club. The day of those floods, I was talking with Hap Hughes, I hope he remembers it, and one of the Castorella brothers, I'm not sure if it was Alan Barry or Craig, I'm not sure I can still tell them apart. It was one of the Castorella brothers, and I think the third guy there was Tommy Burke. And we were standing right by the bridge over Columbus Park, and one of them asked me, he says, do you think this, meaning the reconstruction, was going to happen? And I looked at him and said, man, you know, I don't know. It's going to involve federal, state, county, village, and it's very hard to get all of those things to mesh. But you have the governor of the state and the state legislators here. You have your congressman here with both of your United States senators. You have a county executive and a county legislator who this day commit that whatever portion of this funding comes from the county of Westchester, we will budget it, we will pass it, and we will put that county piece in place without any question. Catherine and I make that commitment. Let me say one more thing before I give up the microphones. This is even more important than just straightening out the problem of the river and the flooding. People have lost faith in government, and you know it and I know it. When you go over to Halsted Manor and have a couple of drinks with the guys there, or you talk to the folks when they hang out and they talk about things, they've given up on government. They see Republicans and Democrats, and one level of government blames the other two levels of government, and everybody's about themselves. Everybody's got their photographer there to take pictures of them. And they don't think that this is about them anymore. It's about us. That's what they feel. And the only way we prove something different is by getting this done, by showing people that the plans become reality, that actually the repairs are made, and the next time a rainstorm happens, maybe not next week, because it could come next week, as the governor said, but when it happens, people say, yes, they responded. They finally did the thing. And until we do that, we're going to lose the most important battle, which is the belief that democracy works. Not politicians, not me. I'm 67 years old. When you put your arm around me, I was 53 years old. 14 years ago. I don't have time to be 81 and out of public office and waddling back here to find that there's another effort to try to straighten this out. This time, we're going to straighten it out because these people are here to do it for us. I have confidence in them, and I know that we will play our share in the county government. And by God, this time it's going to happen.
Yay,
Thank you, buddy.
George.
Okay, we're only going to take questions on this subject. This subject. Yes.
Senator, you are being pulled in so many directions now. You've got voting rights, aftermath of Afghanistan, etc. How can you concentrate on something like Mamaroneck with all of these other?
You know, I started out as a local assemblyman, as an organizer, and that's never left me. And I promised when I became majority leader, I promised the people of New York State that I would continue to be a local guy as well as a national guy. And I've continued to be that. This is important. And as County Executive Latimer said, if you sit on the phone and sit on your butt in Washington and just talk on the phone and read the papers, you don't get it. When you come here and you see what happens and you see the flooding and you see the store owners hurt. Yesterday, we were at, some of us here, Governor and I, you just talk to people who talked about people in a basement apartment, and they're sitting there, and it's a humble little home, but it's their home, and all of a sudden, because the windows are at sidewalk level, the water comes pouring in, and they try to get out, and they can't, and they died. That matters. That matters. So I will never give up the local aspect. God gave me a lot of energy. I spend a lot of it on national stuff, but I never forget the local stuff. Yes, sir.
The Corps of Engineers plan that you're talking about, if it's put into place, how long would it take to do?
We expect it would take about 3-4 years.
Are there any contingencies in the interim of that plan being built? Hurricane season, nor'easter season?
Well, you know, the contingencies are going to have to be, unfortunately, human. I mean, we're going to have to alert people better. The governor spoke about the fact that the weather reports weren't very good, and that's another thing we're going to look at. What happened with NOAA, the agency that's involved in forecasting weather? Why did we get a wrong forecast that said so little? We got to check into that. But there's nothing better than deepening the two rivers and building the flood walls. Yes, sir.
Schumer, the residents of Mamaroneck have heard for a long time that help is coming.
Yep.
What's your message to the residents of
My message is it's going to happen. Look, we should have had this 3-4 years ago, and a mendacious act by a president who didn't care stopped it. It's not going to happen again.
How much money from the infrastructure bill is being allocated to New York and to this county?
Well, as majority leader, with the help of my colleagues here, we got $250 billion to New York in the last 3 bills, more than it has ever gotten. And we saved, last night, with the gloom around, I was at Broadway beginning to open Broadway up, which is going to help our economy. There's so much to do. but we have more money than we have ever put into projects like this, flood projects. There will be the money for this project. We just got to get the Army Corps to put it at the top of the list. The plan is done. It's usually the plan that takes 3-4 years, and we're ready to roll. Anyone else? Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.